Let's talk about the different types of businesses. There's sole proprietors, types of partners, there's different types of partnerships, partnership agreements, and so on. I'm going to present these roughly in the size order. So sole proprietorships are the smaller typically, and partners or corporations are bigger. I'm going to break this into three pieces so you don't have to sit through it all at once. And yeah, this is general information on how it works. Of course, if you're going to set up a business, you should talk to a business lawyer to make sure that you have it right. The sole proprietorship, partnerships, corporation, that'll be in part two. Yeah, these are the three main types of businesses. And let's talk about some advantages and disadvantages of each. The business type impacts ownership. It impacts how you get funding and financing. So sole proprietorships are not the same as corporations. How you deal with employees. Business taxes vary a lot, and this is something you'll definitely want to talk to a tax attorney about. Liability, how you can borrow, how much debt you can hold, and so on, and how the business is controlled. A sole proprietorship is a business established, owned, operated, and often financed by one person, typically the founder. It is the easiest type to own and operate, and also the easiest to start. It is the most common type of business in the United States. A lot of big businesses surprisingly start out as sole proprietorships. So examples are Amazon, Apple, and McDonald's. So yes, those start out as sole proprietorships. They are most common in retailing, in the service industry, so haircuts and so forth, and agriculture, farms, although a lot of farms today are corporations. So these include local restaurants, barbershops, laundry service, clothing stores, et cetera, et cetera. The advantages of a sole proprietorship: it's easier to start, it's easier to close when you're done with it. Some require a license. So for example, a dentist, in most countries, you're going to need a license to operate as a dentist. The owner gets to control the operations, how the company is run, and they make all the decisions. They decide on how much to pay their employees, how they're going to expand, if they're going to expand. They have personal flexibility for hours, policies. They're the boss. They get to set the rules. You have pride of ownership. There's very few people I've ever seen who are more proud of their company than a sole proprietor. The owner gets 100% of the profits, and there are no corporate taxes. And the tax rate is usually lower than corporate taxes. However, this has been changing in recent years. So the disadvantages of a sole proprietorship: well, the losses are, and the liability is unlimited. So you get to own 100% of the loss as a sole proprietor. Yeah, the debt holders can take your house, they can take your cars, they can take everything, whatever the state law allows. You can be in debt for a very long time. There's a lack of money, so unless you're born a billionaire, it's going to be very difficult to start, say, a chip manufacturing company or an airplane manufacturing company or a car manufacturing company. Those take billions of dollars to set up typically. The limitation of a single manager's skill. As a sole proprietor, say you wanted to run a hospital, you would have to know about the admin, you'd have to know about all the medical equipment, you'd have to know about maintenance, pharmacy, the legal aspects, all of it. Not very likely. The time, a sole proprietorship's time can be highly variable. You can have an employee sick or pass away. That happened to a friend of mine. You have holidays, vacation, illness, and so forth. Then there's difficulties in hiring. A lot of people want to work for the big corporation because they feel it's more secure, pay may be higher, more benefits, status among your friends, and so on. And then the last aspect is lack of continuity. Upon retirement or death, the sole proprietorship often goes away. So to be a sole proprietor, you need a certain set of personal skills. One of those is communications, because you're going to be the main person talking to customers, suppliers, and so on. You're on call 24/7. You have to substitute for missing employees or employees that quit suddenly. You have to be well organized, and that's an understatement. You cannot afford to thrash. Thrashing is inefficient, it costs money. You have to be an effective leader because there is no one else to do it. You have to manage business operations. You're the sole responsible person for the success of the business. A lot of sole proprietors get experience in another company before they go to work for themselves. Some common business types: S corporation. It is a corporation, but it's taxed like a partnership. The advantages: income is taxed as personal income of the stockholders. So this is a little closer to a sole proprietorship, but it's a corporation. It has limited liability like a corporation. Check your local laws before you do anything regarding that, because it does vary by state. The S corporation criteria: this is just a partial list of things. The law may limit the number of stockholders in the company. They must be individuals or estates. They cannot be corporations, other major corporations, I should say. And there's only one class of stock allowed, but non-voting and voting may be allowed, as in other things, the laws in this area are changing. Then there's the limited liability company, and you'll often see these as LLC. It combines the benefit of a corporation and a partnership. It does have some restrictions. There are some disadvantages. It does not have to be small. As you can see over here, Pepsi-Cola, Sony, Nike, Hertz, eBay, Apple are all LLCs. Some differences between the LLC and the S corporation. The LLC has unlimited shareholders, but the S corp is limited. And LLCs have fewer restrictions on who can be a stockholder, so it is not just limited to individuals. A partnership is an association of two or more persons who share responsibility for a for-profit company. Partners does not mean equal shares. Oftentimes, one person will have more shares, which means more votes, which means more control. I just had a friend get burned by this. His partner had more shares, he had control. He wrested control of the company away from my friend and left him hurting, to say the least. It is less common than sole proprietorships or corporations. There's no legal max limit on the number of partners. 2 is most common in a partnership. The limits are based on practicality. There are some companies are huge. They'll have 1,700 offices scattered around the United States or the world. But yeah, the practical nature of having that many partners can be difficult, to say the least. Some examples are large accounting, law, and advertising partnerships. They'll have multiple partners. And they usually mix different talents. So you'll have different partners with different talents. So it could be accounting, it could be organization, general management, and so forth. They often result from a sole proprietor obtaining a partner. So the sole proprietor gets tired or becomes overwhelmed, and so they take on a partner. And government registration for a partnership is usually required. Again, check with your state and local laws. There are different types of partnerships and there are different types of partners, and they all have different legal responsibilities. For example, a general partner, you can have one or more partners with full or shared responsibility for managing the operations of the partnership. So they are the top bosses, they are who the people report to, and they have unlimited liability for their decisions and the decisions of the other general partners under them. So yes, it is a little bit scary because they can literally lose everything based on what somebody else does. A general partnership co-owned by 2 or more general partners who are liable for what the partnership does. So that's a general partnership. A limited partner. So this is a person who invests capital in the business. They have no management responsibility or liability for losses other than their investment in the partnership. So I've worked for a company like this. There was one general partner, and the limited partners, also some people will call them a silent partner, they just put in money and they get a return on their investment. So yeah, it's similar to a corporate shareholder. There's no day-to-day involvement in the company. However, that is that's a general statement. It's not always true, especially if the company starts losing money. A limited partnership, it's a firm owned by 1 or more general partners who manage the business and have some limited partners, so non-managers who invest money. So this is kind of a combination. So you have the general partner, and then you have basically investors into this partnership. Limited partners have limited liability. The general partners do not. So if the company gets sued, and let's say it's sued for everything it's worth and goes out of business, the general partners have to pay up. The limited partners are only going to lose their investment. They cannot come after the house or cars or whatever of the limited partner. Again, check your local regulations. A limited liability corporation. So this is a type of general partnership, and this partnership offers all the favorable features of the general partnership and some of the limited liability to the owners. So this has become more popular lately because that limited liability thing is very important. This is why major corporations are almost always incorporate in a way of having limited liability. The advantages has the corporation's limited liability, has more management flexibility. It protects the assets of the owners against negligence of other partners. So if you have one of your lower general managers commits to something, a contract, and it's going to wreck the company, well, yeah, they can't come after your house and car. They may come after the company, but not your personal assets. The disadvantages: an LLC is more complicated and usually costs more to form and maintain than a sole proprietorship or a general partnership. There's fewer compliance obligations in a corporation, so this is easier to operate from a government regulation standpoint. Again, these are changing. More ongoing requirements in sole proprietorships and general partnerships. So you have to do government reporting. Usually it's a quarterly thing. A master limited partnership, publicly traded, so that you can buy this, like, for example, on a stock market, while offering the tax benefit of a limited partnership. Yeah, owning a share makes you a limited partner, and stockholders have more liquidity. In other words, you can buy and sell these much more easily. And it's similar to an LLC for tax purposes. So this is like an investment, like you would invest in any company. Say you wanted to buy shares of some solar panel company. You just go to the stock market, you buy and sell. Master limited partnership is very similar to that. The partnership agreement, the articles of partnership, it's an agreement that lists and explains the terms of the partnership, how it's going to be organized. It is best to do it in writing. Get a lawyer involved. That would be my advice. Agreement should minimally include, and often these are legal requirements, parties in the partnership, their names, principal place of business and the address, what the partnership does, how long is the partnership going to last? Is it a limited time partnership? In other words, a year or to complete a project or whatever, or is it just ongoing? Each partner's capital investment, how much each one put in, the partner's percent of interest in the partnership, how the profits will be distributed. So this is very important because it's not always equal. Management structure, so who reports to whom, who earns what, and how, when, and to whom partnership rights can be transferred or sold. And this is very important because I have seen people get hung up in partnerships that they want out of. They become toxic. The people who started them are no longer friends. They want to get out, but you may not be able to sell those partnerships. They could not, and it became a struggle. A huge amount of their wealth was involved in the ownership of the partnership, and yeah, didn't go well. So the advantages of partnerships: startup is relatively easy compared to a C corporation. That's a big corporation. Capital and credit line is increased by cash and credit the partners contribute. So yeah, a partnership is based on, their funding is based on what the partners can contribute or what they can borrow or whatever. So it is impacted by the number of partners and how much credit and how much wealth each partner brings. Partners can bring and combine specialized skills. So it's not just money. You may have one partner that's really good at sales and marketing, another focuses on finance, another on operations and general management, and so on. The profits are income to the partners. They accrue directly to the partner, whereas in a major corporation, the profits accrue to the company. The firm might not be taxed. Partners are taxed, but the firm might not be. Now, again, this depends on the law. And partners take a percent of any loss. So if your profits are negative, the partners also get to divide that up. Disadvantages of partnerships. Well, they have unlimited liabilities. The general managers are exposed to unlimited risk. If they borrow $10 million, if the partnership does, and the partnership folds, that general partner or partners are responsible to pay back that debt. Shared control. Well, that means that the partners are all discussing how the decisions are made, and that can lead to arguments. Been there, done that. You can be forced by a bigger shareholder to take a course of action you don't want. If they don't like your disagreements, they can force you out of the partnership, and it may be impossible to sell those shares. They may block your selling shares to whoever you choose to sell them to. Shared profits. Profits are shared among partners. That means for each partner, every partner you add is less profit in your pocket. Non-liquid investment. It's easy to invest. You can take a chunk of cash out of the bank, invest it in the partnership, but it's hard to get it back out. If you want to get out, your other partners may buy you out, but they can choose how much they pay for your shares. They may pay more or less than you feel they're worth. And that depends upon the articles of the partnership. So again, good to have that stuff in writing. Consistency, continuity. So what happens from the customer standpoint when a partner sells, retires, dies? Because partnerships, oftentimes the customer or client will have a personal relationship with one partner. What happens when that partner is not there anymore? Okay, that's it for this section. Let's move on to part 2.